My name's Heidi and I'd like to welcome you to this masterclass series on supercharging your aviation marketability. This series is all about collaborating with various experts to really help you to get a job, because that's the biggest question that I am certainly asked. And I thought, rather than to speak from my own area of expertise, how great it would be to collaborate with a range of experts. So today's speaker is wonderful. I'm talking to Emily from the Crew Collective. So I'll let Emily tell you about herself, but she's been actively flying as a private flight attendant for many years. She's greatly in demand. She's also running a business. The reason I wanted to speak to Emily today, one of the reasons, is because I did a post recently on how we can really show up as our best selves on board, and sort of we take all the credit when we create a great flight. But actually, a lot of that is to do with the resources behind the scenes. And of course, we have to be resourceful to know where to look. But it really does help when we have some great resources behind us. And that's one of the reasons, one of the many reasons that I wanted to talk to Emily today. So Emily, welcome. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Heidi. It's lovely to see you. We haven't had a chance to catch up for so long.
I know it's been ages, and that'll be one of the questions that I'll talk to you about today, about sort of flying and running a business as well. But I just, I would love to sort of share with everybody just a bit about you. And, because I know sometimes people look and think, well, I'm not like her, and how can I be, a long-serving flight attendant in this industry and have a long career? But can you just tell us a little bit about you and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So I started 17 years ago this year, initially commercially, and actually it wasn't my intention. I wasn't a huge aviation fanatic. It was never my intention to make this a career. I'd finished my A-levels and I was ready to move on to university, but I wanted to take a year out. Now I wanted to travel, but I needed money. I didn't want to end up somewhere where I then had to travel somewhere beautiful and then spend the whole time working. So I had a light bulb moment and I thought, I know what I'll do. I will spend a year as cabin crew. So applied to Virgin, was successful, started flying. One flight in was absolutely hooked, just so unexpectedly. And that was that. And yeah, absolutely loved my job, loved the lifestyle, loved the destinations, found the whole industry fascinating, much to my surprise. So yeah, I kind of decided maybe 6-7 months in that I probably wasn't going to leave and sort of move back to university life, and that I was going to make a real go of it with the intention of staying in the commercial sector. I had absolutely no idea about private aviation, about the corporate world whatsoever. I don't think I'd ever seen a private jet. And then I was on board one day. I think I was working sort of upper deck on a 747, so you're kind of on your own up there. And I had a passenger approach me, and he asked if I'd ever considered moving into private aviation, and I kind of politely said, "Oh, I'm sure it's wonderful, but I absolutely love my job." Anyway, from there, I won't go into the details, but from there, he sort of gave me his card and said, if you ever considered it, then get in touch. And we had a lovely chat and a really nice flight, and that was it. And then when I got back to my room, I looked at his business card and realised that he worked for Virgin Management, which made me panic, because I thought, oh no, he must have been a mystery shopper, or one of these that's put in there to trip you up. And I remember laying in bed in my room in Barbados thinking, I hope I said the right thing, because I love my job and I don't ever want to leave. And but anyway, it turned out that he was chief pilot of an operation, and he invited me down for an interview, and that was that. And so that was my transition into corporate world. So it was very unintentional. It was I was in the right place at the right time. But it was, I'm glad it happened. But had it not happened, I'm sure I would have been very, very happy staying in the commercial world, probably oblivious to the to the world of corporate
This
aviation.
is what I love about aviation in itself, because you meet the most incredible people. You never know who you're going to meet, when or where.
Absolutely.
Just literally just going about your job. But I feel like when we do what we love and we're in that role, and then there are all sorts of things that come from that, and that is just an incredible example. But isn't it funny, we always fear the worst? We're like, oh no.
I know, but I definitely think, a lot of it is to do with the kind of vibes that you give off, and I was clearly very happy in my role, and I didn't make any special effort. It was the same effort that I made on every flight, but for him to notice and come and approach me and all the rest of it. And yes, absolutely, you never know who you're going to bump into, and when you do start talking to someone, you never really know who they are or where they've come from. So yeah, I think the key message there is just to always be nice, to always be yourself.
Yeah.
Always give people your time. I probably didn't have the time to stand in the galley and talk to him, because I was on my own on the upper deck, and it would have been a busy service and all the rest of it. But you can always find time, and that's a really prime example of had I not, then and we wouldn't be here today. So
yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great point, actually. Even when we are super busy, even just taking a few moments just to kind of really connect with someone and make them feel, like they matter, that they're seen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just makes a huge difference. It can kind of change everything. It shifts everything. And that's all we need. Sometimes you don't need to devote 10 minutes to someone. Even just that is kind of what really creates that experience. And clearly you do that very well.
Thanks.
So fast forwarding, obviously I know you've had you said this was 17 years ago, and you've been private flying for a really long time. I know you're greatly in demand, you're very busy. How did that bring you then to setting up the Crew Collective? Because I know a little bit about the reasons why, but if you can tell us what you felt was missing and why you decided to do this.
Yeah, so obviously this is it's a wonderful role, and it's incredibly unique, but with that comes a real sort of sense of, I say loneliness, but I say it in a sort of wide term, in that I don't mean that you haven't got friends. Generally you're with two other crew members and you can go to the bar and you can have a chat, but in the sense of the role and everything it entails, especially going back 16 years, I had practically nothing in the way of resources. I was very much thrown in at the deep end, which, to be honest, I'm grateful for now, because it made me stand up and get on with it. And I think had I been spoon-fed too much back then, I would have become really reliant and dependent on people. But actually, as it is, I'm very, very independent and always have been. But for the first probably 10 years of my flying career, I had practically nothing in the way of resources. So you just had to kind of make it up as you went along, really, black it to a certain degree. So I can't bore you with too much of that, but it just takes me into the reason why I founded the Crew Collective. So the reasons behind it really are the fact that I noticed a distinct lack of resources, of support, and of community within the industry. And it wasn't until I was probably 15 years through my aviation journey that I looked back and I actually gave myself some credit for what I'd achieved with my very little resources, which spurred me on really to create the platform that we've created. And the idea behind the Crew Collective is that we provide you with as many useful resources as we can possibly find. So it's things that we've either lacked throughout our career or things that we've found useful in recent years. It's not a platform about us. We're not influencers. We won't be in front of the camera very often, but what we do is we bring all the very best resources together into one place to make it easy for the flight attendant community to access those resources. Social media is a wonderful thing. I didn't have that when I obviously started flying. I think Facebook had just started.
I think the
How old I am.
when I started out.
But Instagram definitely wasn't around, so we didn't have, you know, these inspo posts and things like this. So yes, we didn't have it. So I think it's wonderful that we do have it now. But at the same time, I've spoken to a lot of people within the industry, and felt it myself to a certain degree. And you know, lots of people we work with, we've had the same discussions with them. That sometimes it can be. I don't know how to word this nicely, but you get sort of a bit of an inferiority complex. So you tend to compare yourself to others. I mean, not just within aviation, but on, you know, social media in general. You tend, you know, you see someone's welcome table and it's all amazing and it's all pretty, and you beat yourself up for the fact that your welcome table doesn't look that way. So we very much don't want to tell people how to do things. Rather, we bring everyone together, all the resources together. It's not about us saying this is how you should, you know, this is how your welcome table should look, and this is how you should serve your sushi, and you should tie your ribbons this way. It's about saying that, you know, she's done it like this, or he's done it like that. Isn't, you know, that looks great. That, you know, that's wonderful. This might be a nice inspiration for you. This works, this doesn't work. Here's a story about somebody who did this, and you know, obviously with their prior agreement. But we work with lots and lots and lots of different beings, I guess, from within the industry and from outside the industry. We have a huge focus on self-care. Everything we do is sort of centered around well-being, and a big part of that is self-care. And so thinking outside the box and not getting too absorbed by what goes on within the industry, using resources from outside of the industry to better yourself within your role. So yeah, it's just really about bringing everything together.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Just a few things that you mentioned there. Certainly, I know when I started out, I had to do a lot of blagging, and and then kind of figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I remember a really wonderful friend of mine who's become a very close friend now. I barely knew her. I was trialing for a role. She was also trialing. She just finished her trial. And then I didn't know if I was going to get the job, and I was given a job where I was going to have to start doing catering. And I thought, so I completely blagged that I could do it. And I was like, I have no idea, because the role I was in had a chef. So this lady that I'd met on the trial was amazing. She, and again, it made me laugh about, you know, the internet. This was the days of where we were all using fax machines. And these reams of faxes coming out that she messaged to me saying, hey, this is how to create a catering order. And I was in tears of how I thought that was my first introduction to private aviation. And I was like, I had a really great experience also at Virgin, like yourself. I was also on the 747. But I couldn't believe that I had this perception of private aviation, that everybody's going to be very cold and unfriendly. And that was my first introduction, where somebody had been so kind to me and so helpful, and she helped me to figure it out. And then from then onwards, you know, like you, I was thrown in at the deep end, but I guess it was different to nowadays. But just having that resource was life-changing for me in terms of my confidence, where I thought, okay, I can do this, you know, and then you just kind of get started from there. But I think, you know, like you say, it was, you know, we didn't have those resources then. And I feel like a lot of it, you know, stepping forwards to do with confidence. Again, what you said, what we see on social media, everything looks so perfect. And that's one of the reasons why.
But some of that is wonderful, don't get me wrong, and like I'm as guilty as anyone else of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, but I tend to find that by the time I've finished, I feel really rubbish about myself.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I feel like this is why I don't read Hello magazine, because I think, oh, I'll read that, and then I think, oh, my life's really shit. Like,
yeah.
All these people have amazing lives, and
look at their house and look at their car, and
yeah. And actually that's so funny, because I remember back in the day, I mean, not that I'm an anyone, but when I was living in Dubai, because I was TV presenting at the time, and the local Hello magazine decided to do a double page feature on me, I was like, wow, this is it. So of course there's this incredible story about how amazing my life was. And actually behind the scenes, I was going through a divorce. So I didn't talk about that.
Mm.
You know, I was having the worst time ever. But of course, in the magazine, it was like, oh, my life's so perfect. And this is what we need to let people know as well, is that actually they're only seeing one side. You know, it's not, you know, it's there is a three-dimensional sort of story. Everyone's got a story and something going on. And we really mustn't compare ourselves to other people. But, you know, these kind of stories sell. So it's just giving that perspective of actually there's a whole big backstory behind everything. And yeah, I think, you know, working on our skills is so important, and having that inspiration that you provide is amazing. But one of the reasons that I teach not to fear, you know, to not worry about perfection, and also not to fear mistakes, is because I was employed on the back of dropping a whole foil of food on the floor because of how I dealt with it. So now I never fear mistakes, and I don't want anybody else to fear mistakes either, you know. And I think from your perspective, just that support of, you know, it's okay, and just trust yourself that if you're in this, it's because it's what you love to do, and you just need to, you know, sort of arm yourself with some resources, and it will.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our platform is by no means perfect. I mean, we laugh at ourselves on a regular basis. Everything we do, we don't take it anything too seriously. We do lots of, you know, live chats with industry experts, but we always end up, you know, having a glass of wine, and then we start telling our backstories, because we're not perfect, nor are we claiming to be perfect, but there are lots of very valuable resources and very valuable people out there that we can bring together, you know, using my years in the industry and my contacts and my connections, and bringing those people into one place. I think, which it's something I wish I had all those years ago.
That network that we build is just
so important.
It's priceless.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's what gives us also such longevity in the industry. I don't know about you actually, but I'm still working with clients that I've worked with like 12 years ago. They, in those crews, will recommend me to other stuff, and you know, it really has a lot of longevity in this industry. It really does. Actually, I was going to ask you as well, so in your group, do you have like one particular theme or question that you are asked more than anything?
Can you get me a job?
Yeah, my biggest question I'm asked.
We're asked it, you know, every day, multiple times a day, and we don't object to it at all. We don't mind at all. And I would, you know, if I came across our platform, I would ask exactly the same thing. We do make it all look very, you know, nice and pretty, and the rest of it. So yes, I would ask the same question. But the answer to it is, we can't get you a job, but we can provide you with the very best resources to give you the best possible chance to mold your mindset and your attitude and your experience. We work with, you know, different training academies, with yourself, Heidi, for the sort of more of the mindset side of things and the confidence in the cabin. We have catering directories. When you sort of get a bit further down the line, we have a jobs board, which I update at 5 a.m. every morning. I'm on it every day. It's the first thing. I'm a real early bird, so it's the first thing I do when I get up every morning is scour for jobs, and they go straight on there. So it's about us just putting as much as we can.
Time saving as well, because it takes up hours. Even creating a catering order, you know, you're thinking about, well, what is it that they want, and then where can I get this food from? How can I make that work? And it does take hours, and that is such an amazing resource. I you know, this is the stuff that we all really, really need. I have to say, it is so helpful.
I think so.
Well,
we use it ourselves. That's the thing. Like, I use the catering directory every time I fly. I use, you know, the jobs board. Yes, you know, I'm a freelance flight attendant, so I'm a contractor, so yes, of course, I see opportunities. I might be applying for the same opportunities as you, but that's what it's about. You know, it's resources for everyone. It doesn't matter how long you've been flying, whether you're actually flying yet or not. You know, what stage of your career you're at, what age you are, what nationality you are. It's about everyone coming together and contributing, and just putting as much out there as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. another question I'd love to ask you is that I wouldn't say it's the next biggest question, but I know it was a question that has been asked, that there's a lot of emotion attached to it. And I always love talking about these taboo things, because I feel like people don't have a platform, you know, an area to sort of talk about it to people. But one thing that did spark a lot of emotion was talking about sort of the feeling of ageism in the private flying industry. And I did a post on this just to say to people, actually, I see limitations just as guidelines, you know, and this is how I've bust through them. This is how, you know, I was able to help somebody starting out at 52 who had already done her training, and, you know, she just needed some confidence coaching to get through her interview. And she started out at 52, and she has been flying for about the past 6 months now, and she's very busy. But again, she didn't see that as a limitation. She had a little bit, but she just needed to push through that. And what's been your experience? Because I know, I feel like the more stories we have are really helpful for people to think, oh, okay, it is possible. And obviously I know you've been very successful, but what's your thoughts and experience on
I mean, there's no denying that I have witnessed age discrimination. You know, I've been around for a long time. I turned 40 in July, so I'm not young anymore, but by no means am I at the end of my career at all. So yes, I would agree that it's there, but I wouldn't say the focus of it is on old age. I've experienced it with you know, when I was in sort of childbearing years, if you like, and I've experienced it from that perspective. I haven't experienced it with regards to being older yet, but I have witnessed it. But I think ultimately there'll always be what could be defined as discrimination, whether that's with regards to age, skin colour, nationality, you know, your size, your appearance. It will always be there. But I think what we need to not lose sight of here is the fact that it's about choices. And, you know, these aircraft, when I say choices, I mean the choice of the aircraft owner. And it's probably going to sound quite harsh, but these aircraft are an extension of their home. And it's very easy to get caught up in the fact that you didn't get the job and blame it on something like, you know, your age. Or if you see a job advert out there and it says specifically age 20, looking for candidates aged 25 to 35, for example. But it's important to look at the bigger picture and think about the other factors that come with that. So there's, you know, the role of a flight attendant is physically and mentally very, very demanding. There's factors such as the health of an individual to take into consideration. And when I say looking at the bigger picture, the recruiters should be looking at the bigger picture as well. It is about the choice of the owners. So, you know, it is down to them. Generally, they will give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. They might have had a say from the very beginning. They might have specified, you know, some go down to the point of specifying what hair colour they want. You know, it gets to that point. But if you don't fit into that category and you know you're not successful in that application, then that's not the aircraft for you. And I think it's really important to remember that it's not a one size fits all. You're not a one size fits all. You're not going to, in everyday life, you wouldn't get on with every single person. You wouldn't enjoy spending time with every single person. And this is a very personal environment for aircraft owners, for charter clients. And if you know, I'm trying not to focus on the age thing effectively here. So I think it can be blamed. A lot of the time it can be blamed. Yes, it does happen. And there's no denying the fact that it does happen. And yeah, but it's not necessary. I think it's not necessarily that one factor. I think it could be, well, I think I know it is. The other factors that surround it are health, you know, your emotional maturity, your physical ability, your personal circumstances. So going back to where I said I've experienced it with younger flight attendants, it might be that they're looking for someone to undertake a very, very heavy roster where you'll be away for, you know, maybe 2 or 3 months at a time. They're not going to want someone that has a young family at home, or someone that's, you know, just got married, or something like that that's going to pull them keep pulling them back. You know, they'll probably then be looking for someone who is a bit more mature, but perhaps they have children that have grown up. But then there are other intrinsic factors such as health, although I know lots of 50-year-olds who are way healthier than some 25-year-olds I know. So I think that, I don't like this whole focus on age, really. I think there's a lot more to it. There's a much bigger picture to look at. There's no denying it happens.
Yes.
It frustrates me when I see it, but not because I think it's ageist. It frustrates me because people are being it's real tunnel. It shows tunnel vision to me, and it shows that recruiters aren't looking at the bigger picture and the factors that really matter. It doesn't matter, you know, that number doesn't matter, but how fit and healthy you are, whether you think you can do you know, back-to-back night flights. I personally, right now, at my age now, and I know people, you know, will say, oh, you know, you're only 40. I really struggle with night flights. I really struggle with them. When I was 25, you know, 15 years ago, I would have done them, thought nothing of it, come home, had a shower, got changed, gone out, stayed out for dinner, you know, gone out to a nightclub afterwards, and thought nothing of it. Had slept for 12 hours, woken up, carried on with my day. But now, like, it has a huge impact on my health and my well-being. So I try and avoid, like, I'll be honest, I try and avoid them, just because physically I don't really like the way they make me feel. So
I mean, you've just encapsulated all of that.
I could go on forever.
So great. Just a few things sort of came up for me there as well, is that I mean, I'm 51 in May, so luckily I haven't, apart from once where, you know, I shared this in a post just to really inspire people to not be put off by this. Don't see this as a limitation, because I was freelancing in a role because they needed somebody to cover quite quickly with a certain amount of experience, of course, which I had. But they said, oh, are you looking for a permanent role? And I said, no. And I said, okay, that's good, because we are trialing, but you don't quite fit our criteria, which was a very polite way of saying go beyond the age limitation. But again, I just said sure, because again, I see jobs like relationships.
Yeah, and would you want to be there? Would you want to be there if they, you know, if that was their attitude? I personally think it says a lot about an operation, you know, a lot about that company and that operator and that aircraft, if they're the kind of things that are important to them. But I think it's always, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt and have a look at the bigger picture and think, is it because it's a particularly heavy roster? Is it because I'm going to be away for long periods of time? You know, sometimes they are just being considerate to your lifestyle and to your well-being.
Absolutely.
But there's very much a flip side. So if we quickly touch on the Middle East, but we won't go there too long. But you know, there's major airlines who you get to 40 and it's game over.
Yes.
I had dinner with someone last week, a friend of mine, and exactly that happened to her. She'd been with them for I think 15 years, she said, and as she started approaching her 40th birthday, there was talk that perhaps they might extend for a year or two, which is their absolute limit, and they kind of led her to believe that would happen. And then she was summoned into the office and said, right, you're 40 tomorrow, goodbye. And that's it. Like, that is it. She'd had an amazing career with them. She'd reached the absolute top of the tree. Yes. Like an exemplary flight attendant. And
I hear this story so much as well, and I feel like there are definitely opportunities in private flying, you know, even if you're starting at 40 and actually 50. But I think that's the thing, you know, again, with not touching too much on the Middle East, but I will, because that role was actually in the Middle East, so it was really kind of textbook. You know, there was an age limitation with that, and as I say, I went just to do the freelance, and I just came with a thought, okay, I'm not going to fit the permanent criteria, but that's okay. I'm just coming, doing a nice job, and I'll go home. And having done the first flight is when the office called me in and said the boss would really like to hire you. And the second thing that we're really surprised about is that we were told the age limitation was 30 and you're 48. But anyway, I ended up in that job, and unfortunately, through different reasons, the boss lost his jet, which was really disappointing because it was a great job. But again, sometimes people have a perception, and then they meet you through one way or another, and then their perception is completely changed. I didn't think he knew my age because I was 10 years older than the boss. But you know, this is where if we get hung up on certain things, you know, and we start judging our validity as people as being good enough because of certain limitations, you know, it's exhausting. We wouldn't get out the front door every day. And
exactly. And it is, you know, that it is a very draconian, having an age bracket when recruiting for an aircraft is a very, very draconian way, in my opinion. You know, I don't agree with it at all, and I think they should be looking at the bigger picture. But if you come up against it, there's no point in dwelling on it. It's not the right aircraft for you anyway. You wouldn't want to be there. And move on. But that would be my biggest piece of advice, is that it shouldn't stop you. It shouldn't limit you. But if you find that it does, move on. And keep going.
I feel like there are so many opportunities out there, and I know in some of the groups I also see people saying, oh, times are still really difficult, and I'm like, actually in my mind, my mindset is actually there's an abundance of jobs out there right now. Is that sort of your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult thing for me to sort of to say, oh yeah, you know, there's loads of jobs out there, just go and find them. There are, you know, the industry it's recovering. I think it was a very different experience for everybody. Yes, I was, you know, busy during the pandemic, but I had periods where I was very, very quiet, and there was no rhyme. It was a complete unknown, and there was no rhyme or reason to any of it. So I think the last 2 years in aviation, and probably for the next 2 years in aviation, things aren't going to be what would be termed as normal. Yes, they're you know, the aircraft are flying, they're in the sky, there are jobs out there. That there's, I wouldn't say, well, I don't, some days there is an abundance, you know, but I'm very careful not to kind of make people feel as though, you know, you just can't find it, kind of thing, or you're just not good enough. But I think take the positive out of the fact that the industry's moving. It's going to be uncertain for a while, but it's moving, and it's exciting because we have all had to adapt. We have had to, you know, I've flown on aircraft that I'd never flown on before because my regular aircraft had stopped flying and things like this. And it just adds to the fact that this job is a continuous learning curve. And actually, I've got some great experiences that I've taken from the whole situation. Equally, there's been some quite terrible struggles that we've had to go through, and you know, room isolation and things like that weren't very nice. Things very rarely went according to plan. Again, it was the complete unknown, so we'd land into somewhere and not know what was going to happen when we got there, all that side of it. So I think, yeah, look, take the positive that it's settling down, it's moving, it's never going to be as it was. But there's an exciting bit where we think, you know, it could potentially turn into something even better.
Yes. I feel like it's evolving and shifting, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, it's moving. So of course there are opportunities out there. It's moving, aircraft are flying, owners are buying. You know, it definitely recovering. It never stopped entirely. As you well know, Heidi, you know, it didn't ever stop entirely. It's kind of this misconception that everything ground to a halt, and now everyone's scrabbling for all those jobs. I think just everyone calm down, we'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, I went through a period of I didn't work for 5 months, and that was sort of my, you know, I had a tricky experience during that time because of it, but it's all led to everything's just changed for the better because of it. So
yeah, and it proves how resilient we are, and that's one of, you know, the things I think we talked about. I can't remember, you had a question for me, and it was, I definitely put it in there. Oh, I know, what sort of brings, what would my tips be for bringing longevity to a career and sort of staying in the industry. And my biggest tip would be it's resilience. Like, you absolutely need resilience in this industry. And I look back now, and I think there was part of part of the last 2 years that were, you know, great, and I was really grateful to still be flying and all the rest of it, but there were parts that were horrific, and you didn't know where your next flight was coming from. And you know, being a contractor or being freelance, it's it can be really daunting and really worrying. And I have, you know, I mean, everyone obviously has their own situations, but I have a young child, and you know, I have school fees, and I'm divorced, so I sort of do it on my own, and that's my sob story. But you can't let that impact on. You just have to be resilient, and you have to be proactive, and you have to be positive, and you have to do whatever you have to do, you know, to move yourself forward and keep going.
Absolutely.
But that's another thing that we, you know, within the Crew Collective, the elements that we've made accessible to you guys aren't necessarily all aviation focused. You know, there's a lot of mental health and well-being focus in there. So we work with lots of mental health support providers. We don't claim to be experts ourselves, but it's there because there will be days that you wake up and feel, you know, really crappy about yourself or about your situation.
Because no matter what we do, we're still human beings doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why is it very human and very tuned into our sensitivity constantly, and there is another side to that where we
and I think
because
you're almost playing a role when you go to work. You know, it's almost you're acting, you're playing a role. So it's important to not get too consumed with that role, and remembering that there's, you know, behind that uniform and behind that makeup and behind that hat or whatever, you know, whatever you have to put on to play that role, that there's a real person in there.
Absolutely. And we are, you know, paid to really take care of other people's needs. We need to take care of our own, sort of fit our own mask before we help others.
Definitely.
It's such a great way of doing that. I just a very quick question, I guess, is that how have you, because this might be something that other crew are considering as well, as to how you also run a business alongside flying. And I know you're really busy.
Lots of coffee. Lots of coffee and even more champagne.
And that's the perfect answer, and resilience.
No, but I think it is, you know, the champagne's always reward yourself for your achievements is a huge thing with me. And people laugh because they're like, you're the only person I know that would just crack open a bottle of champagne on a Wednesday night. I'm like, but if I've achieved something, that's taken real effort, real determination, that's taken grit, that's taken time. I've been up at 5 every morning because, you know, when you're flying and trying to run other businesses, I run obviously the Crew Collective and then other businesses as well. It takes a lot. Like, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and you're accountable for absolutely everything. So you have to have that motivation, you have to have that you know, you have to want to get somewhere. And then within that, it's very easy to then lose. It's sort of not, you take second place really, and then your wellness can often or your well-being can often suffer.
It's so great celebrating our wins, no matter how small, every day.
Oh my God, I'm well up there.
Even pulling out of bed or whatever it is. Because some days it is tough.
Yeah, but even this morning, you know, like obviously I'll wait until later for my glass of champagne, but you know, to get my son up and out the door ready for school with all the correct PE kit and everything he needed, and he had, today was like the food tech day, so we had to have all his ingredients for his food tech.
Like organising a flight.
His uniform on. I've only got one child and his uniform on, but at the same time my phone's ringing. You know, I had to postpone this chat. I'll admit it, Heidi. I had to push it back by half an hour. But I think that's a big part of it as well, is admitting when you're struggling, admitting that to people. And people are so understanding, not trying to be, you can't possibly be everything to everyone. And it's about putting your hands up when you make mistakes. And it's about, you know, if you're struggling, admitting that you're struggling. And this crosses over into the role of a flight attendant as well. Ask questions, listen to people, watch what they're doing. It's so important. But
that's so great. And I totally agree, because I really struggled through the pandemic, and I kind of sought support to help me through that, and that was the backbone of building sort of my business. because I realized that, you know, there is a huge mindset element to also doing the job. It's like kind of your scaffolding that you put all of your fancy skills on top. We really need that. And I know how much it really helped me. And I thought I want to really be able to share that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what you do is absolutely amazing. And even just, you know, having someone to talk to share, so you can share their experiences. And it's not to say that that's how things are going to go for you, because in this industry, you know, no two flights are the same, no 2 days will ever be the same. It's about adapting, it's about resilience, it's about, you know, just because I've experienced what I've experienced and you've experienced what you've experienced doesn't mean to say that the next person is going to experience the same. But listening to people will do you massive favors in this career, and listening to people's experiences, and you know, taking everything with a pinch of salt, everything, social media, everything. You know, that might look wonderful, what's been plated up and you know, put on the table or on the side in the galley to be photographed really nicely, but you don't know what happened before that picture, and you don't know what happened after that picture. But you can learn a lot from looking at the picture. You know, you can strive for
to improve our
progress. Yeah, because this is another thing that I always rattle on about, that I'm really not a fan of this whole image of perfection, as I know you aren't, Heidi. But to look at something like that and think, I could you know, strive for progress in my plating skills or in my welcome tables, but always have in your mind that that's not the full story, that's not the true picture of how, you know, what you don't know, what went on before, what went on after. You don't know the situation. So yeah, definitely strive for progress, not perfection. And the same with going back to the question about, you know, running a business is on top of flying and all the rest of it. That's all you can do. You know, you have to let go of perfection. If I've held on to perfection, and I probably would term myself as a little bit of a perfectionist. It's kind of how I'm programmed, but I've had to learn over the years that it won't always be perfect. It won't always be perfect.
At least you have the awareness of that, and you're able to let it go and just
kind of and like I wasn't on the call at 10 o'clock today. You know, I'm not perfect. I tried my very best, but you know, I was still on a phone call, and then I needed to dry my hair, but I was just honest with you and said, you know, can I just have an extra half an hour?
No, this is it. This is how I function as well. It's just like you kind of go with the flow, and you see what you can manage and everything. And this is the moving part. So we always have when we're doing flights as well, and it just it always works out. It always flows, and it always works for the best. So obviously, I'm so, like, this has been such an amazing talk today, and I'm sorry to have kept you for so long, but it's been so amazing.
Like, Heidi, we could talk forever. Sorry, guys.
No, but I think everybody will have found this so helpful. We've touched on so many things that probably people do want to ask. And actually, I know you've got a fantastic free gift for us that you'd like to share as well, so that people can actually try out your resources too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we, within the Crew Collective, we offer 2 memberships. We offer a completely free membership, which you literally sign up on our website. Heidi, I'm sure you'll pop some links, and
I will put a link with the video underneath just to sign up.
So yeah, you can sign up for free, and then you can access our jobs board, you can access our chat rooms. We have private chat rooms on WhatsApp, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. You can join the community. There's some brilliant things that get discussed there, and it's a very, very safe place, which is why we've kind of made it a members only, because some of the Facebook groups are wonderful, but you tend to get quite a few imposters in there.
It stops people from sharing, doesn't it?
And I always found it really intimidating. I mean, I've never written in one of those groups because I find it all intimidating. So this is just our members, and it's a safe place, and it's a place for sharing and discussing and all the rest of it. Crew Rest, which we have a book club. We put a monthly book recommendation up. We have a watch club, so monthly recommendations for films and all the rest of it. And then we have a wine club. I wonder whose idea that was.
Like the crew room, that's awesome.
We have a blog and a shop, and then we have a paid membership which includes our catering directory, so full access to our full platform, which is our catering directory, which is literally a quick search. So you pop in your OKO or your destination, or you can select from the drop down menus, and it would, so I could type in, Luton, and it would come up with a list of all the caterers and all the services that might be useful.
I have to say, Emily, I have to quickly jump in that you have helped me. In the Caribbean, I was like, where do I get it? And you just jumped straight in, and I was like, wow. And he's not somebody that we could have just found anywhere. And I have to say that you have some incredible contacts that have actually been really helpful for me. So much.
Well, I'm glad, but it is, that is something that is really, that's my baby, and that's taken me 17 years to put together. But all of our recommendations aren't just from me, but they are what they are tried and tested. We don't just stick anyone in there. They're tried and tested and verified. But I think we're up to about 1,500
oh wow,
1,500 caterers in there now, so we've pretty much got most places covered, and we're building it all the time. And then we have the CC Live, which is where you'll find, there's a chat with you on there, Heidi. You'll find things like this, so live chats with industry experts and professionals, and we have live workouts, which for our gold members, they can access sort of a library with everything.
Workouts with champagne.
Workouts with champagne. Yeah, no, we've got hotel room workouts. I know. Well, they're the rules, aren't they? You have to reward yourself for working out. So yeah, definitely. But all sorts of stuff in there. Canapé masterclasses and brilliant stuff. So that's all in there. And then we have discounts and deals for our gold members as well within the collab lounge. And they're not necessarily aviation companies. They're things that we've got, like we work with a Tanya Whitebits, who does a brilliant fake tan, like things that we know will come in useful in your life. So and then clothing companies and candle companies and all the rest of it. So it's not there is obviously a balance of professional and personal, but
lifestyle.
It's not, you're not going to go on there and just be like, oh, this is all about aeroplanes, because there's so much more to this job than aeroplanes. So what we to cut a very, very long story short, what we would like, our dream is for as many of you to experience what we have on the platform as possible. So I would love to give you a month's free membership to the gold, the gold part of the Crew Collective. So you'll get access to absolutely everything for a full month. There's no obligation to stay signed on or anything like that, but just so that you can really get in there and get a feel for it, because there's so much on there, and I'm so rubbish at sitting in front. I never show up on Instagram or whatever they call it. I'm really terrible at sort of blowing my own trumpet or blowing our trumpet in that respect. But so we'd just love you to get on there, have a look around, and take whatever you can from it.
This is so helpful. Again, just having these resources that I certainly didn't have back in the day. I just had blagging and faxes coming through.
Oh, we've done all right, Heidi. We've done all right.
This is so amazing. Thank you so much. I know we've talked about so much today. Do you have any sort of final thought? Is there anything that stands out for you that if somebody was to just take one action point, or one action point not to take, what would you say?
I think, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it would be self-care first and foremost. So I know you've already mentioned it, but putting on your own oxygen mask before putting on anyone else's. You can't, I know it's a cliche, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. You absolutely can't. There's no point in turning up to work absolutely frazzled because you've done 2 weeks of back-to-back flying and trying to please every operator and please every owner, and just being honest with people. If you are starting to feel a bit crappy, then be honest. They don't bite. Well, most of them don't anyway.
I think that's so great. I think a part of that is policing ourselves to some degree, because I'm like you, so a freelancer, and I could say yes to jobs, pretty much every day, but I actually allow myself time off to sort of recuperate, do my other stuff as well. And the reason I would, in the past, I might have said yes constantly is because I would fear that if I didn't, work would dry up. And it's just really trusting that work is coming, and it's okay to say no, to take care of yourself, because that's actually a good thing. You're not going to lose work because of it, and you're going to come back stronger, and there will, the opportunities will be there.
Yeah, and I think there is this
fear.
Yeah, there is this I was going to say a myth, but it does actually exist of if you say no, they won't ever ask you again. It does happen, but again, are they then the right operator for you? Is that then the right aircraft for you? I wouldn't want to work for them. So I think you do need to be quite disciplined. It is very easy to just keep saying yes, but that has really, really not great consequences usually. And I know that from experience, because I was a yes girl, and I got to the point where I really struggled with my health. My attitude absolutely stunk because I was exhausted. It just so many knock-on effects by being that yes girl and not listening to yourself and ignoring your own well-being. And then my biggest, I know I've already said this, but striving for progress and not perfection.
I think
it will never, nothing will ever be perfect in this industry. You can prepare and do everything you can, and have the idea in your mind and the photographs of how everything's going to go, but there are so many moving parts in there. I guarantee it will not go the way you planned it to go.
That's the thing, it's that being able to just move around. You have a plan, but it's okay if it doesn't go to plan, because it will flow, and just allow it to.
And I think having a contingency plan is so important. Like, that's my one thing when I go to work, is that I always have a plan B. So this is how I would like my flight to go. This is what I'm preparing for. But if this doesn't happen, you have a contingency plan. But I'm like that, in life in general. That's another thing that I've really had to work on with myself, rather than when something doesn't go, didn't turn out perfectly, being really upset about it. I'd worked on changing my mindset so that I wasn't striving for perfection. And in the same breath, if it didn't go the way I wanted it to, I always had a plan B. But it's in this industry in particular, it's so important to always have a fallback plan.
Yes, yeah. These are such great tips. Honestly, I'm so amazing to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so
much. Thank you. And thank you to everybody that's tuning in and listening. I hope you've enjoyed this interview as much as I have. And please do sign up with Emily, because she's offering some fantastic resources. This will make you better at your job, and also your mindset, and all the things, the wonderful things that we've been talking about, all of those really solid sort of quality things that you need to have in place to really help you to excel, and also to make yourself more marketable as well. So please do tune in for the other masterclasses coming as well. And I'll talk to you all soon. And thanks so much, Emily.
Cheers. Thank you, Nadia, for that glass of champagne.
Oh, yeah. Let's get online for that. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.